In 1953, the CIA director Allen Dulles signed off on a program called Mkultra. Its stated purpose, in the CIA's own words, was the research and development of chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of employment in clandestine operations to control human behaviour. That's a direct quote from the CIA's declassified Inspector General report. You can read this yourself on cia.gov, document number 067-67515. This was made public because somebody raised a Freedom of Information request to get it. This program ran for 2 decades. It had 185 researchers, 149 separate projects. It involved 80 institutions and 44 universities. Those numbers come from Admiral Stanfield Turner, the Director of Central Intelligence, when he testified under oath to the US Senate. You can get this full PDF also at intelligence.senate.gov. So what do those Mkultra projects actually look like? Here we can see an approval for funding that was submitted by Sidney Gottlieb, Chief of the Chemical Division. And look what it says. Objective: to study the possible synergistic action of drugs which may be appropriate for use in abolishing consciousness. Here's another one. To study methods for the administration of drugs without the knowledge of the patient. These are purchase orders for drugging people without telling them. This is not conspiracy. This is me reading from the Senate's website. Here's another one. It says, the purpose of the project: to make a critical review of the literature and scientific development related to the interpretation of bioelectrical signals from the human organism and activation of human behavior by remote means. And then further down in the same file, it asks, what aspects, if any, might be considered controversial? Probably none. Researcher and university were unwitting. That means the university running this project did not know that the CIA were behind it. Neither did the researcher. Here's another one. In order to carry on the work of the above sub-project, it was necessary to test the effects of certain chemical substances when administered to human beings. This is a retroactive approval of an expense. It says, in view of these circumstances, the project engineer, with verbal approval from his chief, authorized the contractor to pay the hospital expenses of certain persons suffering from incurable cancer for the privilege of studying the effects of these chemicals. They tested unknown chemicals on dying cancer patients and then filed a receipt like it was nothing. This one is Subproject 68. This one refers to research done at the McGill University in Montreal by Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron. This research was funded by the CIA through a front called the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology. Cameron put patients into a drug-induced coma for 22 hours a day. He gave them electric shocks. He played recorded messages on a loop for 16 hours a day for weeks at a time. He locked patients in soundproof rooms with goggles, white noise, and cardboard tubes over their arms, sometimes for as long as 35 days. Patients came to him with depression. They came out unable to recognize their own children. In 2019, the Canadian government had to settle $100,000 for each of the 127 victims. But his work is still published in the Journal of Psychiatry today, as if this was normal and should inform your science. This was Frank Olson. He was a biochemist with the CIA at Fort Detrick in Maryland. The story goes that on the evening of the 18th of November 1953, his colleague spiked his drink with LSD. 10 days later, he falls from the 13th floor of the Statler Hotel in Manhattan. He dies on the pavement. Later, the hotel night manager writes a letter to his family. He said the phone operator connected a call from Olson's room moments before he died, and that they heard someone on the phone say, "Well, he's gone. That's too bad." And then nothing happens for 20 years. Until 1975, when the Rockefeller Commission report into Mkultra references an unnamed army soldier who had been given LSD and died. The CIA confirm this is Olson, and in July 1975, the director of the CIA, William Colby, meets Olson's family and hands them a 165-page declassified document. Gerald Ford apologised to the family and Congress paid them $750,000. But then in 1994, Frank Olson's body is exhumed, and Professor James Starrs finds a cranial wound inconsistent with a fall. So the New York District Attorney changes his cause of death from suicide to unknown. After years of investigating, his son publicly stated, "The death of Frank Olson was a murder, not a suicide. Frank Olson did not die because he was an experimental guinea pig who experienced a bad trip. He died because of concern that he would divulge information concerning a highly classified CIA interrogation program." Everything I just told you is from government documents, primary sources. Not Reddit, not YouTube, not some conspiracy theory. The CIA's own files. So why does MKUltra still register for most people as a conspiracy? In 1973, the CIA director Richard Helms ordered all MKUltra documents to be destroyed. And this guy, Sidney Gottlieb, the infamous gentle-hearted torturer, personally oversaw all of the shredding. And they almost got everything. They got all the operational files, all the subjects' names, all the details of what was done. What survived were financial records. So there's 20,000 pages of budgets, receipts, and proposals for spending. And they only survive because somebody filed them in the wrong place. Somebody sent them to the budget and accounts section. A filing error. That's how any of this is public. The 1963 Inspectors General report says it plainly. Present practice is to maintain no records of the planning and approval of test programs. Same document also says this public disclosure of some aspects of MKUltra activity could induce serious adverse reaction in US public opinion. The Inspector General knew about it. He reviewed it. He made the recommendation not to shut it down. The systems that were supposed to provide oversight provided protection. MKUltra was designed to be hard to believe. That's why it's so hard to believe. They used psychiatric patients, prisoners, wards of the state, drug users, people in institutions, dying cancer patients. They chose test subjects whose testimony would be taken less seriously by design. Officially, the program named MKUltra ended in 1973, and the people who ran it retired comfortably. Sidney Gottlieb lived in Virginia until he died of old age in 1999. He was never charged, and his testimony was only declassified in October 2025. And that includes LSD testing, assassination plots, domestic spying, and what documents just refer to as special interrogation. Richard Helms, who had all the files destroyed, went on to become the US ambassador to Iran. MKUltra did not exist in isolation. It existed inside a CIA structure, a system that uses front organizations and unwitting universities to test biological torture. When exposed, the files were destroyed and the perpetrators were simply moved to new roles inside of the machine. The name changes, but the documents show continuity across name changes. I can't say that this is still running, but I can say the mechanisms are still there.